Before we get started with this week's episode of Wrestling with Sports with our guest, Ryan Sickler, myself, and Jason Kendall, I do want to warn you, if you're listening with small children, you probably want to stop it about now. This is a F-Bomb Delight show. It is unedited. We decided to let it go with the comedians and some of the actors we have on. They tell stories, and some of the stories you really need to have the curse words in it to really get the full oomph of it. So we decided that we are not going to edit any of the comedy shows. We'll put a warning ahead of most of the episodes that if you're listening, because we try to keep it a family-friendly show, but here we are with a warning. So who am I to tell you how to parent? Maybe you want your kid to listen. That's great. Either way, forewarning, lots of F-bombs being thrown and some adult content. So don't listen with your family or friends or whoever, but I warned you. Anyways, Wrestling with Sports, if it's your first time listening, we talk a little wrestling, talk a little sports. Sometimes we talk one, sometimes we talk the other. But either way, it's Wrestling with Sports. Dimitri Young, former Major League Baseball player. Dave Chris, professional wrestling with Impact and OVE. So they sometimes tag in and out, and when they're not around, it's usually Jason, myself, and a guest. So this week, as I said, Ryan Sickler, you know him from the Crabfest and the Honeydew. So without further ado, all right, it's time for Wrestling with Sports. Jason Kendall, myself, Dennis Farrell, joined by a very special friend. And Jason, I got a story to tell you. I have went to a ball game with this guy, and you've played professional baseball. Me and my friend here, Ryan Sickler, have not, but we did get a chance to sit in the little press box with Dan Duquette once and watch a game, which was, by the way, hanging out with Dan was fun, but hanging out with Ryan.
I know for a fact that he got the tickets, though. I know that Ryan got the tickets or knew somebody. You wouldn't know anybody that had tickets. You were just fortunate enough to probably be around him when the tickets were offered to him.
Oh, hi, Ryan.
How you doing, brother?
It's been a while, man. I missed you.
It has been a while. I haven't talked to you since I was part of the Armed Forces Radio Network going to Dodger Stadium with Steve somehow.
See, Jason, you don't realize this, but I did have a little hookup with media credentials for baseball, and what I would do was give them out to my friends so they had a chance to go and experience some of the cool shit I got to experience.
Yeah, it was great.
And then fortunately, like 10, 15 years down the road, they can be on our hit radio show that we they feel like they owe you. But Ryan, if you want to hop off now, you don't owe him anything.
Going back to that ball game, you met me at Camden Yards when I was in town in Baltimore one time, and we sat in Duquette's box, and he sat with us for a little while. And the thing this is when the Orioles were good for a hot second. The thing that I really appreciated was, and I don't know if you remember this, Dennis, but I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Chris Davis on first base. He made an error, and ball goes out in the right field, and
he slams papers on the desk, and he gets all angry, and
he got mad.
We're like,
and
what?
Then the inning ends, and someone else in the box goes, "Well, at least it didn't cost you any runs." And he turned around and he goes, "No, but it cost us 8 pitches." Yes. And I was like, fuck yes. Like, he's up there old school keeping score, and he's like, that just put 8 more throws on my fucking pitcher's arm. And I was like, fuck yeah, that's why he was mad. It wasn't about the run. It was like, am I going to have to bring somebody in the 6th now? Which happened all the time for the Orioles. I love Nolan Ryan. Nolan Ryan was like, if you can't pitch 7 innings, you ain't on my fucking team.
It is ridiculous now, the pitch counts and this and that. And I after I got done playing in Kansas City, I went up to the front office. I was on the field as well, front office, but our general manager, Dayton Moore, same way. And they're very intense, as they should be.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to tell him, and this was coming from a player, and I know George Brett, and I'm not name dropping at all, but me and George go up there, and I'm like, this is the way it's always been? And he goes, Dayton's nuts. And I go, Dayton, you need to chill. I mean, what, are you going to fire me? I don't care. I mean, I've made good money in the past. I'm all right. But, and I'm going to tell you what, he chilled out a little bit, but they're all like that. He chilled out a little bit, and, the next 3 or 4 years, there'd be little things that happened throughout a game, and he goes, Jay, what do you got? And I think he sucks. Get him out of here now. So I was the one who became more of a jerk. But these guys are intense. And those 8 years that I spent with the Royals, I never really even knew when I played. I didn't know. I mean, I knew who the GM was, I knew who the owner was, but I never really had any interaction with them. So seeing that side and seeing everything that goes on, it definitely opened my eyes a little bit. But those guys are intense, and obviously Duquette, and I can only imagine. But it's intense. It's actually fun to watch for the first couple times because it's like, all right, this is what happens. But then they start throwing shit at the other people, and you can't throw binoculars at him.
He did leave pretty quick after that. He was hot about it. And we're only in like the second, I think. It was early.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But
that's very, very cool.
But it was great because here are two sports fans, and I don't know about you, Brian, but for me, that was like kind of a first-time really cool experience. I knew Dan through before he even got the gig. And we were talking, then he gets
Brian or Ryan?
Ryan.
You called me Brian. You did.
I swear you called me Brian.
You did. I wasn't going to correct you, but you did.
No, I will. I have no problem correcting you.
And he knows better. Dennis knows better.
Listen, we're going to go back, and the tape will tell here in a little bit. But anyways, Ryan.
Yeah, the tape will tell, and he's never going to do a fucking other sorry-ass favor for you ever.
But listen. Let me get back to the story, though. For Ryan and me, we were just two kind of regular guys who have gotten lucky in life. But to hang out with a pro GM, that was a really first cool experience that I had in baseball.
Yeah, it was great. And then we went out and bought.
Cool. I'm still going to go back to Brian. I mean, I'll shut up right now, but you will never, ever let that
definitely
down.
Call me Brian.
Oh, boy.
Do you remember we went out to get the beers and the guys tried to hustle me?
Yes.
Do you remember that?
I do.
So we go out to get a couple beers. I'm like, let me buy you a beer. We go out to get a couple beers, and I knew what they were doing. I knew they were going to do it to me. I used to do the old flim flam myself, whatever. Give them the money. Then they want to start giving you change. I'm like, and then he's holding my money, and I'm waiting for the change. He's like, I already gave it to you. I was like, I knew you were going to fucking do that. I knew you were going to fucking say you gave it to me. You didn't give me the fucking change. He keeps going off, and he just thinks I'm some rube. And I was like, "Listen, motherfucker, I'm from Baltimore too. I stood here and watched what you did, and I've been waiting on you." And I was like, "You know what? I got something for you." My cousin's there. He's a cop, and I call him and I go, "Hey, listen, these motherfuckers are robbing me. All I want is my money back." And what they do? They came and brought us beers at our seats.
Yep.
They were like, they were super apologetic.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was like, it's these two dickheads right here, and all I want is either my money or my beer. They brought me my money and brought us around to beers.
Yep.
You know what? That's beautiful. It's always good to know somebody and have in your back pocket that's in law enforcement. It really is, because it will pop up like tomorrow.
It worked.
So, Jason, what was your experiences playing in Baltimore?
Well, I mean, I didn't really play there until I was with Oakland. I loved it. I loved Baltimore. I loved because when I'm trying to think what it was, I never played in interleague until I got traded to the A's. We actually opened up there my first year with Oakland A's, and it's just such a gorgeous stadium. Loved it. I mean, and our team hotel was right across the I don't know if it was a bay. It was walking distance. I mean,
yeah, you're probably to Sheraton or something like that at the harbor.
Yeah, exactly where it was.
Yeah, that's where they used to do all like the radio shows and shit out of the top of that Sheraton. And stuff.
Yes. I loved it, and I remember because it was the first time I loved going to new stadiums. And before interleague started, it was just kind of your divisional, the Central plays Central, or so going into the American League for the first time. It was awesome, and I remember we had maybe 2 or 3 days off, like full days off there when I was with Oakland, because you're going from West Coast to East Coast, and they usually have you get in like at 4 in the morning or something. And I just remember there's a Dave & Buster's down there and a Hooters across the road, and the ballpark was like 5 blocks away, and you could walk wherever you wanted to. And I loved it. I don't know how I did offensively. It was one of those ballparks where I didn't do too well, but
that's one of the questions I was going to ask you at the end.
I didn't hit many home runs there anyhow, but
did you ever hit one in Camden Yards?
Go into where you should hit a home run?
Yeah, that's a hitter-friendly park. Have you ever hit one out at Camden Yards?
I don't think I have. I mean, I've had some good games there, but I don't think I've ever hit one. But it's one of those ballparks where, like, you send me to Houston, I'm hitting a home run in the series, at least one. And I went 1 year without hitting a home run. I mean, I wasn't a power hitter, but it's one of those ballparks you go into like, oh, geez, I can leave out of here. No, I never did, but love the city, love the ballpark's just beautiful. And I think it was the first before I made it to the big leagues. I believe it was the first one that just kind of opened up as the newer ballparks, and it was Camden, and I can't remember what it was, but
then they did Pittsburgh after that. They did Cleveland.
Well, see, the Pittsburgh. I was there when Pittsburgh opened up.
Yeah, that's beautiful too.
So maybe okay. I guess what I'm trying to say was the newer one that I hadn't seen.
Gotcha.
Because I didn't go to the American League that much, just the Central Division. But I loved it. To be honest with you, I loved everything about it.
Nice. Did were you ever buddies with anybody on the Orioles?
Myself, well, yeah. I mean, you come across players that you get traded and released, picked up. I mean, yeah. I played with. Geez, I mean, I'm just trying to think of people off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, I know. I don't have any friends, I guess, number one. But number two, like Eric Burns got traded over.
He was a hustler.
Yeah, well, he's out of control. But that's like his personality on the MLB channel is his personality in real life. He's a beauty. But I mean, yeah, you come across certain players get traded or released or whatever, and you say hi. But when I played, I didn't really play. This is not about me. He can ask me questions later. Dude, okay, you have to tell me this Baltimore Colts story. I'm watching. This is not happening, and I think one of the things that I always did after I got done playing was, because you're getting home so late at night, is I would just watch stand-ups. That's why when Dennis told me that he has a couple stand-up comedians or comedians that he knows, and I'm like, dude, because I know who you are. I know what you've done. I've watched your stuff because that's what I did when I got home from games. I didn't go and turn on like ESPN because I don't want to see that stuff. I would go and I would laugh my ass. It was kind of my out, I guess, to say if you want to say it. It was my out. Get out of sports. I don't want to do it. So I know who you are. But when I first saw you, or one of the times I first saw you, was the Baltimore Colts story. Please, the ball boy. Please tell me that, just like so I can like actually.
Yeah,
see it. I love that.
It's a true story. And I tell it all in that bit, but this is 83, and my dad takes us to Owings Mills to watch the Colts practice. And back then, they did their off-season camp at Western Maryland College, which the Ravens did for a while too before they moved it all in-house to the Under Armour Performance Center. But so you could go up there and see them, and we'd go there and watch them at Western Maryland. And then once they moved back in season, they would practice at Owings Mills, where actually the Ravens are now, that area. So we would go there, and it was before any eBay or any of that shit. No internet, nothing. You could actually get down on the sidelines and watch and, hang out. And my dad would take us from time to time, and it would just be one of those things. If we were bored during the day, he'd be like, you guys want to go see we were like, fuck yeah, we want to go see the Colts practice. So we go, and I have two brothers. I have a twin brother and a younger brother who's just about 4 years younger. Not quite, but roughly. But so we're 10, and he's about 6, 7. And we're there, and we're watching. We're on the sidelines. And then this receiver named Raymond Butler looks at me. He's like, hey, you want to throw the ball around? And I look behind me first because I can't believe he'd be talking to me. And I'm like, are you talking to me? He's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, my God, so stoked. And I it's as close as I'll ever be to a Baltimore Colt. I mean, actually playing for the Colts. I am soft tossing with fucking Raymond Butler at 10 years old. I can't get over it. I'm Raymond Butler in the backyard. You know what I mean? Like, we're running out routes 100%. And everything else. And he was so fucking nice. He was so nice, such a cool dude. And he starts talking to me about being a ball boy and would I be interested. They're already in the season, but he says, maybe next year we could talk about having you be one of the ball boys on the team. And I was like, holy shit.
What a dream.
What a dream. And, I'm playing around, and then my brothers come over, and then Raymond Butler realizes I'm not an only child. You know what I mean? I got these two brothers, and he's just told this one kid, maybe you could be a ball boy. And he just sees it, and he's like, oh, I didn't know I didn't know there were 3 of you. You know, I don't know if that would be fair. And that's when my dad stepped right the fuck in. It was like, hey, listen here. Those 2 are over there dicking around. This kid's playing catch with you. I'll take care of that shit. You just make sure my favorite new son gets fucking season tickets. And, you know, we play a little more, and my dad talks to some people, and they're like, yeah, you know, we've got your info. We'll stay in touch. We'll make this happen next season. So we're driving home in our fucking station wagon going nuts. You know, we're Colts. You know what I mean? We can't wait.
No,
my dad's coming. Yeah, my dad's coming to every fucking game, and my brothers maybe are, maybe they're not. But we're going.
Yep.
So, you know, that's in the fall. You know, the season starts probably October, whatever, November. And then fast forward to March of 8th, as I say, 1984, I turn 11 years old. And
oh my God,
a couple weeks later, it's a late March snowy night. I'm in bed. My brother and I shared a room. And my dad comes up in the middle of the night and wakes us up. And he's we're like, we don't even know what's going on. He's like, hey, come on, the Colts are leaving. And we're like, huh? You know, like, to hear, you don't even, first of all, we're just waking up and we don't even know what you're like, what do you mean a team is leaving? And we all go downstairs and we sit on the couch and we're watching the Baltimore Colts sneak out of fucking town in the middle of the night in Mayflower fucking moving trucks and off into the black. I didn't even know of Indianapolis. Awful. I knew Annapolis because it was the capital of Maryland, but never heard of Indianapolis. Awful. And we had been watching the news all along where Irsay would come off the plane drunk from Arizona and be like, I wasn't in Arizona. And they're like, we're meeting you, getting off the plane from Arizona right now. Like, we're here at the airport interviewing you, stepping off a plane that just landed from Arizona. And he would deny it, then boom, gone. And I mean, you talk about extra devastation. Your football team's gone, and you were going to be a fucking part of it. You know, 10 years old, I'm going to be a part of it. It was devastating.
Well, it is devastating, but I had to hear that just from you because it's kind of like cool for me. I mean, this is, I don't know how many people listen to the show, but you just made something really cool for me. That was awesome. Because I laughed my ass off when I heard that story because you hear about this. I mean, I was with Oakland. Oh, they're going to move. They're going to move. They're going to move.
Right.
I was with Pittsburgh. They're going to move. They're going to move. They're going to move. It never happens. And that's probably why I got a kick out of it because it never really happens. I mean, you're not going to move a franchise that big. They're the Colts. They're the Baltimore Colts. That's who they are. I mean, they're not going to move them to Indianapolis. I mean, just as a kid growing up, like Tony Dorsett was that was who I was in the backyard, stuff like that. So, but you just don't ever think that it's really going to happen. I mean, like the Raiders right now, the Raiders fans, and I played in Oakland for 3 years, completely devastated because it's never going to happen. I mean, they're going to talk, and that was the attitude that fans had. Like, okay, whatever, talk. Oakland fans are just, it's awful. It's an awful thing for a fan. So I get it. That's probably why I got the biggest kick out of it. But I had to hear that for myself because now I can sit there and say to my friends, like, hey, I spoke to you, and you told me that story. Dude, you'd be surprised how many ball players, because the season's so long, because everything's night, actually sit there and we'll just watch comics. I mean, now you get YouTube and this and that.
Yeah, I love knowing that.
Yeah.
But back then, I mean, back when I say back then, we're not that old, but back then, I mean, it was just you come home and you either watch Comedy Central or something, or get your VHS, pop it in there, and which I don't even know if they even make VHS things anymore. But and I think so. That is beautiful. Every time I've met a comedian, I always ask him this question, and it's probably dumb, and you probably get it. And I know there's cell phones now, but are you constantly thinking what to do next? Like if you're walking down the street, do you have like a pad or do you put out your cell phone? Like you say, I don't know, say some guy trip and fall and you something in your mind just because I've always wanted to know that. And I get the answer and I ask this question all the time just because I get intrigued about it.
Yeah, I am. It's so funny. I usually will see something, and then these days I have an iPhone, so I'll put it in my notepad, or I'll use the voice recorder, or something like that, just to put it down so I don't forget. But yeah, it's so funny. I'll give you an example. There's, I'll tell you the honest to God truth. So the apartment building behind me was vacant, and squatters started staying in it. And they wouldn't. The owner was rich, didn't give a shit. We kind of think he wanted it to burn down so he can collect on the insurance. And sure enough, one night this fucking thing goes up in a huge blaze, huge, and it burns. LA Fire Department's great. They're right there on it. I mean, they had 5 trucks. It was huge. And he's like, a few more feet, your building, all these buildings around here would have been gone. So they save it. And then the next day, I'm standing there, and COVID hits. And they're telling my Phoenix dates get canceled. My stand-up dates get canceled. And I'm on my balcony, and I'm smoking a joint, and I'm looking at this burned down house. And it hits me all of a sudden that Phoenix, rising from the ashes, when the fuck do you ever get to do a promo shoot in a burned down fucking house? So I call my boy Marty up, who works with me, and I'm like, Marty, I need you out here tomorrow. They're going to demo this play. And they already did. I'm like, they're going to demo the shit out of this. I want you to come and do a promo shoot with me in this burned down fucking nasty house. And then we can use it whenever we come out of Corona lockdown, or when my Phoenix dates get rescheduled, we can make a funny like promo about rising from the ashes or whatever. So yes, and I got it. We shot it, and now the place is gone. So I'm glad
that is absolutely brilliant.
And I'm just sitting on it now. But I'm always And I'll tell you this too. Stop. You didn't ask this question, but I will tell you this because it's interesting for me as a creative person. Like, I am my most creative when I'm laying in bed just as I'm about to fall asleep. I start running things through my mind, and it just, the stress of the day's gone, all the bullshit's gone, and this moment where I'm about to drift off is so clear. And sometimes I run stand-up through my head, and I think of new tags, or I think of what I saw during the day. I'm like, oh, it'd be funny to say that. And then I'm up another hour putting these notes down and stuff, So I am always thinking
really
of it.
Crazy that you just said that is, and this, I'm not just saying this to say this because I that's how I was with baseball, calling a game. I would literally wake up, whether it be right before you fall asleep, but I would more wake up like, okay, why'd you throw him a slider? Knowing a matchup, like if the left-handed pitcher was coming in, what is Joe Mauer off this guy, and I'm just throwing the name out, off his lefty, because I was always running the bullpen in my mind, and I didn't want to do it, but that was my job. And I would, and you're right, when you are in your bed at night and you kind of just recap, whether it be a show you did or in my case it was the game, but once that game was over, I would go to the next game, and I would always, the whole night, okay, what do I got? And those are the thoughts that I would take to the field the next day.
Right.
And it wouldn't always work, but I'm going to tell you what, if that situation came up, I was locked and loaded, and I instantly knew what to do. But it was right when I was either going to bed, or in the middle of the night, I'd wake up, and I wouldn't write anything down because I'm not a stand-up, but I would just mentally log it. Like, okay, I got Brian Schaus, my lefty specialist, coming in. Mauer's 2 for 3 off him. He was in a 2-1 count. He hit the changeup for a base hit. I would just go through and that's just how my brain worked. So I've always wanted to know that, because you guys have to have new material over and over. And I mean, yeah, you guys can do some stuff with the same material you've had here and there, especially if somebody hasn't, seen it, or I'm assuming nightclubs, I don't know, but you have to have new material. So I always ask that question, because how does your mind just has to be boom? I mean, for you to be as successful as you are and have the new material, you have to be just nonstop thinking.
Some guys I know wake up in the morning, and that's when they're their most clear and fresh. I'm not a morning person, but yeah, you always have to have not only new material, but there's also, like, it's interesting if you're really into the art of stand-up, like, you might say, oh, I heard that bit before, and maybe you've heard the meat of that bit before, but I started it different tonight. And I ended it differently tonight. And I tried these 5 different jokes that I've never said in there. So a 3-minute bit now is a 5-minute bit. And I've reversed the beginning and ending. And another thing I try to do too is once I build the way I do stand-up, this is just me, is I like a flow. I like an overarching set, callbacks, things like that. I want you to know who I am and things about me. When you leave, It's not all observational. It's also like, oh, I know about that guy as a person. I relate to that. And Tom Segura does this too, which made me feel good about doing it. But once I get you get tired of it after a while. If I've got an hour I know I'm doing, you get a little stale. Like, other than the millions of dollars they made, I have no idea how the Rolling Stones can still fucking sing Satisfaction.
No idea.
With energy and like excitement.
Yeah. So they probably blew it all up their nose. That's probably why they have to.
Yeah, that's true. So I'll take the ending after a while that's really strong, and I'll start with it. And that way, if I'm starting with what I think is the strongest, then I've got to go up from there. And it just makes your material stronger and stronger by putting yourself in a hole and having to dig up,
And I'm totally, Dennis, I'm totally connecting with him right now because
that's so sweet.
What I think he's kind of telling me right now is what I would do too. All right, the whole Brian Shouse against Joe Mauer or whatever they hit in certain counts. I'd always have a back. I called it a back pocket plan. Like if we're in and this is foul ball. There's got to be something in here that he hasn't seen, and I might call timeout and be like, "Hey, dude, throw like just a BP fastball down." Always have something in my back pocket, just when. Because your all-stars, your hitters who hit 300, they do their work. They know what. I mean, if you're facing Twins, like I said 2 months ago, and I'm just bringing Mauer up because it was the first name I thought of, and he hits a 2-1 slider up the middle for a base hit 3 months ago, and he gets in that situation again. He's in a 2-1 count. He's looking for it. He's looking for that same pitch because ball players, just like anybody, they're creatures of habit, and they kind of. But that as a catcher was like, okay, I remember that. Throw a fastball, boom, broken bat, goes back and slams his helmet, and he's out. But I always have something in my back pocket for him, and that was just my mind. And listen, at the end of the day, I didn't take credit for anything. But at the end of the day, I also knew that my pitchers, they knew that I did my homework, and they knew that, you know what, I was going to follow them. And that's when the games are a lot, quicker. That's when the games are a lot. And that's what's wrong with baseball today is that games are so long. Well, they are. But, I mean, when you got two knuckleheads and a pitcher out there trying to call a game, and then you got the dumb catcher back there that doesn't care, especially if he gets out his first at bat and he's got a freaking attitude when he goes back. Yeah. You have to be able to split the two up. But the games are going to last 3.5 hours, 4 hours, because this guy has no idea what he's doing. The catcher's back there every day, sees their feet, sees their hands. So I get what you're saying, and I love it because you always got to have something, and you got to mix it up. You have to mix up pretty much everything you do in life. You have to mix it up in certain situations.
Wow. Now, I got to jump in here because we've talked to a few comedians, and I've never really been able to broach this question. I feel comfortable enough with Ryan to at least ask it. And
Brian or Ryan?
I said
Brian.
I said Ryan this time.
Brian.
I told you, you're not good. I will use this forever. You want to know why we have 10 followers? It's because you can't let our guests know what their names are.
That's cute. That's cute. Thanks, bud.
I can't wait to hear this question.
But
I can't either now.
There was a report earlier in the year where they were talking about they were going to ask MLB players to take pay cuts. And we know when comedy starts back up, they're not going to fulfill, the whole seat arena. They're going to space people out. I think we talked to Jimmy Pardo where he said he heard that comedy clubs will, have a seat between each family or couple. Going into it, have you heard anything where comedy clubs may ask you guys to take pay cuts? Or do you think they're going to keep fulfilling your asking prices?
That's a great question. I have not, to answer the first part, I have not heard anything definitively. We've all been talking about it. There's a couple of ways it could go. If we're part of this phase 3 or 4 here in California, it's going to be a few more months. And I do believe a lot of people aren't going to be comfortable going out right away. I don't think the Comedy Store is going to be sold out all 3 rooms Monday to Sunday immediately, unless there's a vaccine. If there's a vaccine that comes out pretty quickly, I think stuff will get back to normal quickly. But I also think there's a bit of bullshit. And I don't mean with the virus. I mean with the way they're doing things. Let me be very clear about that, because I know some people are going to get on me. But
nobody listens. First of all, no, and people like you need to be. I mean, when you say certain things, you'd be surprised at how much people listen to you. But so I'm sure whatever you're getting ready to say is bullshit.
If you're going to allow movie theaters, this is just the California Western Pact. If you're going to allow movie theaters in phase 3, where people laugh, people clap, people drink and eat around each other, if you're going to allow church, all right, and I grew up a Catholic, but I am not, come on. If you're going to let people turn around and shake hands to introduce themselves, if you're going to let some fucking weird pedo fucking put a cracker in my goddamn mouth, if you're going to let people drink from a chalice and dab it with a hometown buffet napkin, then you should let comedy clubs be fucking full of people, okay? This one seat between people, look, when you laugh and cough, they say, obviously microscopic spit comes out or whatever. Well, that hangs in the air. So that waitress or waiter is going to come through and walk right through that cloud. That fucking seat between you is not going to do anything. So it's going to be very weird if they space people out in a club that you could fill to perform to an audience of scattered people is bizarre. Even if you had a half full night, you would want those people up front together because comedy is meant to be intimate. It's meant to be performed in a way where you're vibing off that energy. As far as rates go, I mean, I'm sure they're going to cry poor. I'm sure they're going to say that, but guess what? So are we. So you get what you pay for, no matter whether there's a virus or not. And I think some of the bigger comedians are probably going to have to go because the theaters are going to be a minute. And I think the guys like Tom and Rogan and those guys, maybe they do go back into the bigger clubs for a little bit and help bring the club back up too, But again, it all really depends on if the people are comfortable coming out and doing that. And I don't know that people will be right away. I think that's going to be a minute before they're not scared. Plus, if this goes long, forget about all that. Comedy, entertainment, that's disposable income. And if people are out of work for 4 months, 5 months, they're not going to have a lot of that. So I can't see them coming out to throw money at ball games and movies and stand up and all these other things. I think it's going to be weird. It's going to take a minute.
Now, one more follow-up question. Do you think club owners will use this as a way of bringing down rates for good? Because let's be honest, like the wrestling industry, sports, they're always looking for ways that, the asking price in comedy has slowly gone up with podcasts and guys building their own fan bases, where I always kind of imagined club owners are paying a little bit more than they want to bring guys in. Do you think they're going to use this as a way to kind of, bring the ceiling down a little bit and try to cap it again?
Well, let me start off with this. We're talking about stand-up comedy. When I first stepped on stage in Baltimore, I was 20, so we're talking about 93. All right, how long ago is that now? 27 years ago. Wow. I was paid $50 to MC a show, okay? I just want you to know the clubs today, the improv chain, when you host a show outside of the Hollywood Improv, when you're doing like a Brea or Irvine or whatever, it's $50. It hasn't changed in 27 years, okay? Wow. Clubs will always try to pay you nothing. They will always try to get the best deal. It doesn't matter what. There's been no virus, and they've been doing this bullshit. Segura was a guy that went after them and said, look, I can't believe the amount of money you guys make on, just alcohol alone. They want to pay you nothing. We're monkeys. We get up and we dance.
And there's no negotiating?
You can negotiate, but if they tell you, hey,
being seen is more of a.
That's the thing. It's always, if you don't want it, 10 other people will take it. Okay, but again, you get what you pay for. So we're monkeys that dance while you sell chicken fingers and fucking alcohol. And. Yeah. The only time it changes is when you do something about it. If you can grow, you're just like an athlete. I mean, look, Lamar Jackson, he ain't going to be playing on that rookie contract all 5 years. You know what I'm saying? They're going to figure out something that probably after next year to sign him to something beyond that. They're going to have
I'm in Kansas right now with Mahomes.
Exactly.
That's where I live. Same thing.
And if Mahomes wasn't good, then he wouldn't have a leg to stand on. He'd be going against whatever these average salaries are. But the minute you can rise above and do that, you control it for a little while. But everyone's star fades eventually. Everyone's athletic prowess fades eventually. Everyone's everything fades eventually. And there's always somebody younger, faster, stronger, better that's coming right up behind. It doesn't last forever. So you got to capitalize on it now. And now, I mean, I'm so glad I started podcasting and doing what we're doing years ago, because without that, I wouldn't have an audience right now. I'd be just relying on stand-up. And I've been saying for years, you can't just be a stand-up comic anymore. I mean, even look at Seinfeld does comedians in cars. He's not just out there doing stand-up. So you've got to be diverse. You've got to be able to do comedy. Grew, man. When we started, it was just getting up and telling jokes. And then all of a sudden, boom, internet hits. And now look at all these shows. And if you haven't been evolving with it, like anything, Look at what Madden did in baseball. Nobody was doing that goddamn shift. I mean, look, it works fucking great, but it makes baseball so boring.
Madden's a clown, and it's awful, and it's all the scoreboard at the end of the day is going to dictate what you should and should not do. But these players are getting paid so much. That's a completely. I can go off on this forever.
I mean, I sit and watch. I'm like, that's an old base. When I was a kid, that was a base hit right there. God damn it!
Without a doubt.
And it's a science. I get it. You know, he adapts now.
No. You got your old school, you got your new school, and then I don't want to say mediator, but needs to be somebody in there, because some of the shifting is good. But you know what? You don't know what that guy has that day. You don't know if his curveball's going to be as sharp. If not, whatever. I can't stand the shifts, and I'll give you one. Try to be really quick story about this. Is I'm trying to think of the big left-hander for Texas, and I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Hit a bunch of home runs.
Yeah, he played for the Orioles too. Cruz.
No. Left-handed hit. He's Bryce Harper's buddy. They went to the same high school.
Well, that
not Votto. Anyhow, besides the point, it was a 1-1 game. Nobody's on, nobody's out in the 8th inning. It was a crucial type of game, and I was watching this on TV, and he comes to the plate, and he had like 25 home runs, whatever it was. There is not one person on the left side of the infield.
Isn't that crazy? One. Not one.
And it's Houston, and obviously they're a joke as it is anyhow. But
Rafael
all you have to do is
Palmeiro?
Now, if I'm a veteran player in that, Gallo, Joey Gallo.
The prospect.
Joey Gallo, I believe. And the worst part about the whole thing, listen, I can't bunt. Okay, if you make it to the big leagues, you can bunt. Bottom line,
the bunt is gone.
It's hard to get to the big leagues. You don't even have to bunt. You can throw whatever you want to do. And the worst part about it is he rolled into the shift. If I'm a veteran on that team, I'm sitting here. I'm going like, what the? Let the next guy do it. Maybe you got to knock and hitting 220. Look, because the players look up at the scoreboard. You look, I'm hitting 220. I was embarrassed as hell if I didn't have a 3 in front of my average when I played. In my last 5 years, it was embarrassing because I didn't have a 3 in front of my average. But now you're hitting 222 or 221. Like, dude, lay the bunt down. Not only are you doing something for your team, but that 222 is going to go up because you're hitting that bad, that low. You get an easy base hit. It's going to bump up 3 points, and you're going to be like, oh, okay, I'm 222 looks a lot worse than 225. I don't care if it's pretty much the same thing for fans or not, but it looks a lot worse.
Yeah.
And you could, but then you change the shift. Okay, I can go on this. I can talk about this stuff forever, and I really don't want to do that. And
he'll be back on.
I guess getting back to what he said is, you said, and it makes so much sense to me because you said that you can go and maybe have separate seats and this and that, and it's going to fade. It's going to absolutely will fade away. And same thing with baseball. Listen, I was in the Arizona Fall League for 2 years, and I was fortunate enough, and it's the best baseball talent, and it's after the season, it's like your AA prospects that are on the verge of making it to the big leagues. But there's no one there. You got your 5 scouts, and if someone's family came in, great. Awesome. You play 2 weeks. Now, I was fortunate enough to be there when Michael Jordan was there, and after this whole Last Dance thing came out, so I think they're trying to make a bigger thing. But you knew once a week that you're going to have 2,000 people in there as a player. You couldn't wait to play the Scottsdale Scorpions because that's who Jordan. People want to come out and say, I'm like, but after the second, third game you play, you're like, you can hear there's not even a peanut guy, but you can hear the guy on a bike down the street, like Kelly Leak, like
Bad News Bears, bro.
You could hear like people having a conversation, like, oh, okay, oh, there's a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. Oh, that was hard, but yeah, I'm gonna hear Kelly Leak is talking. It's awful. So that's gonna fade too. The first couple games, That'd be awesome. It'll be great for the fans because you know what? It's going to give them something to watch. But because I do believe I heard something today, like the middle of June, they're going to try to start a 2-week spring training.
June 10th.
Well, look, I hope they play baseball. I hope they play football in front of no fans. The only reason, this is a selfish reason to be honest, but when Baltimore had the riots and they played the game that no fans were allowed. By the way, I've written a full documentary. Anybody out there wants to work with me? It's called No Fans Allowed, ALOUD. But I
love it. And that's another reason I wanted to have Dimitri here because Dimitri's brother was playing on that team.
Yeah, Delvin. Yeah, he sure was. But what I loved, I went and I walked the neighborhood that day. I just went out for a walk for a couple hours because I enjoyed hearing those guys like little leaguers. You don't hear that with the crowd. They're cheering for each other. They're calling shit out. I mean, they could hear. The announcers had to whisper because they could hear them. Their volume, like swinging them, they could hear that because they're so used to projecting with all that volume, the crowd there. So I'm kind of, I'd love to hear these guys play football with no crowd and watch on TV and hear them calling everything out. Yeah, they're gonna have that. Yeah,
because there's a lot of
So towards the
you're
end,
definitely gonna hear. So that's what I'm hoping for.
So towards the end of the show,
that's television. That's entertaining, to be honest with you.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so we're getting towards the end of the show. I know, Ryan, you have to go here in a few minutes, but we tend to kind of geek out when we get to talk to athletes, and same with you. So we always kind of dedicate a little bit of the end of the show, and sometimes we play a game where we throw out a player's name, and Jason and Dimitri will talk about whether they know him, or if he's a good guy, bad guy, whatever. So if there's any players off the top of your head, I always have a list of guys that I'm always curious about, and I'll start it off. Jason, tell me a little bit about Andres Galarraga.
I mean, you talk about a class act, and the year, just an unbelievable guy. And I do have kind of a story about him because, and this is Jamie Moyer. I'm not a big Jamie Moyer fan, but he had a great career. Galarraga had
what he
cancer.
pitched till he's like 50?
Oh, he's like 80. I think he's still pitching. Who knows? But he played with cancer. He was a comeback player of the year. That was the year that I came back from snapping my ankle. And listen, I just snapped my ankle. This guy came back from cancer, and put up an unbelievable year. So people are like, I'm like, man, this guy had cancer, still went out there and put up numbers. Well, it's funny because Jamie Moyer called him for a charity event, and Galarraga said no. So listen, I didn't deserve anything that year. But he goes, oh, hey, you know what? Jamie calls me and goes, hey, Galarraga couldn't make it, so would you be able to come and do my charity? I'm like, fuck you. Excuse me. No, I ain't playing second fiddle. So, all right. Is there another person?
Shit.
See, it's that kind of stories. So,
I'm kind of straightforward if you haven't noticed.
I got it, brother.
Gotten me a lot of trouble. That's all right.
Any names or anything you want to geek out over?
I want to ask. I got a couple questions.
Go for it.
Well, first, if you're allowed to say, who's someone you intentionally threw that fucking middle finger down and said, "Let's hit this son of a bitch"?
Oh,
and why?
I couldn't count how many it was, and it wasn't. And it's funny because the thumb click used to be hit him, but when all the cameras and everything came out, so that stuff's usually taken care of in the dugout. Like, hey, second pitch, throw one in his neck. You got whatever. So that stuff is taken care of, and so to name one person,
let me ask you this before you're thinking. I remember seeing, I want to say it was ESPN or someone zoomed in, and I don't know who the catcher was, but it was a straight up middle finger down, like fuck this guy, and they caught it on camera, like you said. And I had never seen that before, and I was like, God damn, they hate
the guy
this son
get
of a
hit
bitch.
afterwards?
Oh yeah.
And that's what's with all these cameras now is you get fined. You get fined like $1,000, and you get you'll get suspended for 2-3 games or whatever it may be. But because of all these cameras, so those are things like this. Now it's like throw over to first. So if you see this, the thumb up in first,
that's over to first.
That's throw over to first base for the most part now.
So here's another question, because I've always wondered this, and maybe you know, maybe you don't. This is because I've always wondered, what does MLB, what does NFL, what do they do with the money from the players' fines? I've always thought they should donate it to charity. What do they do actually if you get fined $1,000 or whatever? Or what do they do with that money? They just put it back in their pocket, or do they put it toward a good cause?
Okay, the answer that I would like to believe, actually, the answer that I'm pretty sure they do is they use it for their private jets to fly around town.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
The one I'd like to believe is they give it to charities, which I don't know. And trust me, I've been fined enough in my career, and I always knew I was going to catch 140, 150 games a year. And I always knew if I can get in a fight, I would never embarrass myself. I would never embarrass the team, the city I played for. But if somebody ever did something that I didn't like to one of my players, pitchers, or myself, I'm gonna. And I always and after a while, I mean, the first time I got suspended, it was 2 games, and then it went on and on. And then I was getting 5 or 6. So I would I would literally pick the time. I'm gonna drop my appeal right now, and I go to Toronto or wherever it may be, and go take BP, and then go sit at the bar and watch the game. So I knew. But I would never, and that's what's wrong with the game today, and nobody wants confrontation, and confrontation is not fighting. Confrontation is like the Houston Astros thing. If someone's banging on a trash can and the hitter can hear, I can hear. And I'm going over, and after a while, you see that guy throw a bastard pitch down and away, and somebody hits it out to right field. I'm going, hey, that trash can is hit again, because I can hear it too. Every single person that comes up is going to get smoked in the neck until you guys knock it off. That's right. I mean, that's what I would do.
I'm bummed about that, man. I was so stoked for the season to start to watch the Astros start getting plunked, and these motherfuckers got saved by the coronavirus.
People, well, trust me, and I said something and I got in trouble about it. There's only about 40 people that are excited that COVID-19 is going on right now, and they're all in the Houston Astros
damn right they are.
Organization and the front office. They're the only ones that are happy about this but I said, this is not going away. It's not going away, and
baseball won't forget this. Yeah,
you're going to see if these guys have balls or not, and if they man up. The kicker to me is about this is the guys that have retired, like, oh yeah, we cheated the game, and I can weigh my ring. Yeah, they're done. They're done.
They got out clean. Dirty but clean,
man. Yeah, listen, I don't want to give too much dirt, but because I know he doesn't listen to his own show, but it's cute. It's cute that Dimitri Young thinks he was never plunked on purpose. Ain't that right, Jason?
He thinks. Think that?
The reason I say that, Dennis, and there's a clip that I had, like, oh look, Dimitri got hit. It was the opening of PNC Park. The only reason I say that, and I can't remember, was somebody sent me that clip, and I was listening to the announcers. Well, we had opened up with Cincinnati, and we always played Cincinnati and Bradenton and Sarasota, Florida, because they're the closest. And then the announcers brought that up, and that's what I was trying to think. I'm like, shit, I do a podcast with Dimitri now. I should try to remember to see if that was. And it hit him in the ass. He's a switch hitter. That's why I had to try to make it sound like, because I honestly can't remember. But I mean, if I would not hit anybody in the ass if I had a problem with them. And don't go head hunting. Don't go head hunting. No, I hit him in the fucking neck. It would be some. Excuse my language, but it would be someone. It would be. I'm knocking someone down. I'm making a point. Like, no, this is not something that you're going to do. And I'm not the one throwing the ball, but I'll guarantee you, my pitcher. And I'm not trying to be Tommy Tough Guy. I'm just telling you the way I played. I mean, I would there's something up and in, and that's what I would. So I'm not going to hit anybody in the butt. And I love Dimitri, and I loved him as a player as well. And maybe that was a pitcher thing. Todd Ritchie was the starting pitcher that day. I do remember that because I watched it, obviously. And he hit him in the butt. And Dimitri's kind of like, whatever. But that being said, it's hard to hit a guy. It's hard to hit a switch hitter. It really is. So I'm assuming, because I heard the announcers and because I was catching, but I wouldn't say hit him in the butt. I don't care if it's my best friend. I don't care if it's my mom. Hit him in the neck.
Yeah. That's what Bo Jackson always said. If he loved my grandma, but if she put on some shoulder pads, I'm gonna run her over. Right over.
So true. So true. Problem is, my mom would come after me and probably kick my ass.
Now, Jason, you were on an all-star team with this guy, and I've always wondered, can you tell a Joe Girardi story? I
was on an all-star team, and that was because I actually started that all-star game because Piazza didn't go after Clemens after he threw a knife at him or whatever the heck it was.
A knife?
The bat head.
Oh,
Yeah, he got hit in the head.
Remember that split bat?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so he couldn't play. So I started that game, and Girardi was an alternate. I mean, I don't know if Joe and I really like each other, but I can't remember any reason why we don't like each other. But I mean, hey, how you doing, Joe? Hey, Jay, how you doing? I mean, it was one of those things, but nice guy. I mean, and he's had a great career managing. Hell, he managed the Yankees and World. I mean, it's pretty much big time stuff. So I mean, but I will say this: when he came over about 2-3 years ago, when I was working out early in our gym, he came over and we were literally 5 feet from each other, and we didn't say a word to each other. And we both knew who each other were. So, and we were the only two in there. We didn't say one word to each other. But I mean, I don't have any. I don't think I do.
I have one more, and then I'll let Ryan geek out a little bit. Alex Rodriguez.
He's a total tool. He's probably the worst person in all of baseball, and he's a clown. And the fact that he's got all this crap going on right now, and obviously J-Lo's the publicity there, and I mean this dude, he cheated the game. He played like a clown. He played like he was soft. He was unbelievable. Man, he was good. He was that good. He didn't need any of the stuff that he had to have. And I will say this: he got hit in the little elbow pad, and there's actually a picture somebody took a while ago, and he was on the ground. I already knew I was done playing. It was 2010. My arm was blown out, and I was still playing. And he's on the ground, and I'm just yelling at him, "Get your ass!" They took him out of the game because he got a bump on his arm. But I don't care about what people think of me, and I rat's ass. Alex Rodriguez knows I don't like him, and he probably doesn't like me, and great. But you ask anybody in baseball, I will say 99.9% of people can't stand Alex Rodriguez. He was that much of a tool.
Wow.
Ryan, it's your show now.
I want to know what the fuck the Molina family knows about catching.
Right.
I mean, my God, they're all phenomenal. Do you have do you have a favorite catcher from like your days?
Well, my dad caught for 12 years, so I have to say him because he's my pops, and he taught me everything. But you know what I did? I watched everybody. I would watch everybody and try to take something for their game. That's what I tell a lot of these kids now today. It's like, watch somebody. If you watch somebody, it might be the same thing for stand-up with you. You might do the same thing, like whether it be an action or maybe you can twist a joke I don't know. But I used to watch Brad Osmus and Mike Lieberthal, and we weren't big guys. We weren't Dingelberg. What's the bad news catcher? Engelberg.
Engelberg.
The stickers hanging out of our.
Taking a shit, eating a candy bar.
I mean, we were smaller, athletic catchers, so I would always watch certain things that they did because. And another thing is like people will tell you to change when you get to the professional level because everybody supposedly quote unquote has the answers. I would just watch people, and if it's not broke, don't fix it. That's how it is with catchers. And is it the right way people try to? Yeah, but is it working? Yes, you stay with it. So my big thing is just watching catchers, and some things might work for my game. Great, because I can use it. And if they didn't, I would definitely try it. So I didn't really have a favorite catcher, but my dad, because I did watch him a lot. I watched a lot of videotapes of him. So my father, as far as a catcher.
That's great.
Now, listen, we've talked a lot about empty arenas and playing by yourself and not hearing. Jason, I know, I bring this back to Jason. I watched a clip, and I don't know if anybody's heard it on this show. Can you talk about the time you played with the Cubs and you could hear the coaches making fun of you?
Oh, well, no. So you Googled my name, Dennis? No, what happened was...
I did. I didn't know who you were.
So what happened was me and Lou Piniella did not see eye to eye. I mean...
He's the last of the old school. I grew up with Earl Weaver, so I love that hothead tempered shit. Piniella was like the last of those guys. I feel like
we're in. I mean, it's like a Thursday getaway in Colorado. Nobody's in the stands, so you can hear the peanut guy in right center. So I can't remember if he was throwing. I think it was hitting. I rolled over, ground ball, or no. That's yeah. Like I hit a ground ball, they'll play, and I come back out to catch, and he's bitching at. I believe it was Gerald Perry, our hitting coach. The only reason I know it was Gerald Perry because I had him 3 different times with 3 different teams. But yeah, and so I halfway in between, like I don't know who was hitting, but I go hey, timeout, and I hey, you know what, you dumb. I can hear your ass. I can hear your ass right now. Why don't you say something to my face? So I'm yelling at my manager.
That's great.
And I'm catching, and I'm yelling at my manager. So I went into his office afterwards, and we had a nice little talk. And but yes, that was a true story. And the hitter, it was a veteran. It wasn't Todd Helton. It was definitely a left-handed hitter because I knew that I could see him from the first base or the third base dugout where the visiting team plays in Colorado, and he was like, oh, and he put his head down. I was like, I hear you. And so whoever was hitting, I can't remember what it was just laughing their ass off because, wait a minute, you're yelling at your manager, but you could hear everything because there was nobody
That's
there.
Great.
Like a 12 o'clock Thursday game, and it was just one of those things.
All right, I know you got to get out of here, Ryan. Before we do, definitely let's talk a little bit about your new podcast, The Honeydew.
Yeah, the Honeydew podcast, thehoneydewpodcast.com. It's all about, I call it highlighting the lowlights. We sit down, we talk about your trauma, your rough times, and we find a way to laugh at it. I just, I've gone through so much in my life, and the biggest thing that saved me is laughter. And what? After you sit in your shit for a little while, you got to get up. You got to get your fucking ass out of there and move on. And at some point, instead of just crying and curling up in a ball all the time, you got to fucking find a way to laugh at it. And I think that's one of the most healthiest things to do. So that's what we do. We have people come on and they share their trauma. And I've been surprised. Some people have come on and just told like fantastic, embarrassing moment after embarrassing moment. And other people have come on and talked about, God, death, rape. I mean, Jesus Christ. I've been pleasantly surprised about the things people have come on and shared, and it's going really well.
Wow.
I think that is unbelievable. I mean, and to be honest with you, it's because you're very personal. Listen, I don't know you. You don't know me. I'm a fan of yours, and I think it's awesome.
Same, brother. Same.
I appreciate that. But you're very easy to talk to. So I'll guarantee you the reason people are opening up to you because you're very easy. I don't know you. I'm looking on a computer right now, but I feel like I could sit here and tell you everything. So that's an unbelievable quality that you have. But plus, you're funny as hell, and I couldn't appreciate you more for coming on our show. And I apologize for him calling you Bryant.
He definitely did.
We're gonna go. Listen, I'm gonna go back and listen, and it's going to be proven that I did not do it, and then you both will owe me an apology.
No, you called him Brian, and you're never going to let that.
Definitely did.
That's part about the whole thing. So,
I don't know.
But if you ever need anything from us, please let me know. I mean, it was an honor to talk to you, and thank you so much.
I'd love to have you on the show, dude.
I would love to. You let me know, and I'll give you my number after here, and whenever.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me on. Seriously, I appreciate it. Follow me on RyanSickler.com, Ryan Sickler on all social media.
Awesome.
It was great having Ryan Sickler on for a great, fun chat. So if you're still listening, you enjoyed the show, Wrestling with Sports. We do a couple episodes a week now that the quarantine has us all locked in. It's usually myself, Dimitri Young, Dave Chris, wrestler, Jason Kindle, and myself. And we talk either wrestling or sports or a little bit of both. It's a hybrid show, but we don't get too deep into either one. So if you're a wrestling fan, you don't get too overwhelmed with sports stuff. Or if you're a sports fan, you don't know wrestling, it doesn't get too nerdy on you. So hopefully you'll subscribe and listen any chance you get. If there's a topic, a subject, a question you want us to talk about, shoot us an email, wrestlingwithsports@gmail.com. If you want to be part of the show, you have a comment, the same thing, and you want your voice heard, 248-455-6565, 248-455-6565. Call in, leave a message, name where you're calling from, ask us anything. We'll talk about it. We'll listen to your voicemail. We are a show that fully welcomes the fans in to be part of it. Sometimes we're just here trying to entertain you with different things, actors, comedians, whatever we think is an interesting interview. We try to bring it to you, as you heard with Ryan Sickler and other interviews coming in the future and in the past. So please make sure you subscribe, rate, leave a comment, tell your friends. That's the biggest part of the show, is tell your friends. And we're a growing show. I think we put together a pretty decent cast of 2 ball players, one that's really into wrestling, one that likes wrestling, sports, a wrestler that likes sports, and we try to bring you different point of views. We're not all agreeing with each other. So thank you guys so much for listening to this week's Wrestling with Sports. Hopefully we'll talk to you guys soon.